Whoever is reading this, hi, my name is Mira. A 17-year-old from the most beautiful town of Montenegro, Kotor. They call it the Old Town. It's one of the most beautiful places that my eyes have ever seen. I am not saying this only because I live here. It's because I believe so. But nothing exciting happens around here. Life feels like a déjà vu sometimes. But luckily, I have a group of friends with who I hang out every day, and they got some extraordinary, scary stories to tell. Stories that they had heard. So, we decided to have a sleepover by the beach. We put on a fire and had all of our little beds around it. We bought some snacks, and we were ready to get scared. One of my friends said she knew a story about a woman who lived in my neighborhood. My friend's father is a policeman, and he is the one that had told her about this case. She says that someone had called the police years ago and found some people dead. But in that house, the woman had left a note. My friend says that she has that note and will read it for us. She took it from her pocket. The note was all burned and old, and you could barely understand the writing. The story went this way. I tried my best to meet a man who I can marry and have children with, to find someone to love me and hold me through the darkest times. But I have turned almost 50-year-old, and it didn't work. Every man I've met and gone on dates says that I am crazy. Am I crazy for looking for what I deserve? Am I crazy because I want love? Not finding a man to love me had messed up my confidence. I've lost hope in love. But my love for having a kid had never gone away. That's why I am trying my best to find a proper job, to adopt a baby and raise it in the best way possible. I want my kid to have the life that I never had. The woman I sleep with at the psychiatrist told me that I can't adopt if I don't have a house or a decent job. She also says that they can't let me out of the psychiatrist if I don't get well. But I am well. I don't know why I am here in the first place. I have been taking my medicine, and I have been behaving well. I asked the doctors when will I be going out from here, and they always say tomorrow, and the next day they say tomorrow. But the clock was ticking, and one day I decided to get out of there. That place was killing me. The first nights I spent around, sleeping outside in the city. It was cold, and I could barely find anything to eat. There were times when I changed my mind and wanted to go back to the psychiatrist, but I was still applying for any job that I could. I couldn't lose hope just yet. One day, I was looking through the trash can behind a restaurant when suddenly a woman came out. I decided to go away because people apparently don't love and respect the homeless. But she was different. The woman said to me that I should go inside her restaurant and try the food that she makes. She is a chef. How could I say no? I could hear the smell coming from the restaurant. I hadn't had a hot meal in a minute. We sat there, and she got a chance to know more about me. I didn't tell her that I had run out from the psychiatrist because now she would think of me as a crazy person. But I told her that I was having a hard time finding a job, and she was kind enough to offer me help. The woman said that she needed a cleaner at her restaurant, and I was happy to help her. She said that I could stay and sleep there until I found an apartment. Life had become good. My hopes were higher than ever. I had a bed and could eat whatever I wanted. I loved my job too because while I was cleaning around the restaurant, I came across and met many beautiful people. But I could tell that my health and mental state were not on the right track. Maybe my doctors were right about me after all. A voice had appeared in my head, and it was talking to me non-stop. There were nights when I couldn't sleep because I would feel too stressed from what the voice was telling me. Why are you trying so hard for? You're going to die anyway. I decided to go to a pharmacy near the restaurant. I bought whatever I could remember from the hospital. I hated when the doctors gave me drugs, but now it felt like the cherry on top of the cake. I was feeling myself again, and the voice had disappeared. Now that I started to feel better, I should move on with my mission. The woman that owned the restaurant, she helped me a lot. She found an apartment for me at a reasonable price. I applied for adopting a kid immediately. But months had gone by, and I was not getting an answer. Then, suddenly, on a random Sunday, someone knocked on my door. Had they found me? Are they going to take me back to the hospital? I decided to not open the door. But then I heard a woman saying that they were from the adoption center. I had never run faster to the door. But it wasn't successful. She said I wouldn't be able to raise a kid by myself, that I needed a partner. Where can I find the partner? I decided to take care of my appearance and try to go on dates, but it wasn't working. Or should I just kidnap a man and force him to have my child? Kidding, just a hopeless human sharing its darkest thoughts. I wasn't finding a man, but luckily, I was still working, and work had become much more interesting during a random Monday. As I was cleaning the ground with the mop, I noticed a young couple had come to have dinner. They looked like one happy family. They had 2 children, a newborn who was crying all the time, and another baby, who I think was around 4 or 5 years. Their little girl, around 5-year-old, would go around the restaurant walking and playing. Her mother wasn't paying attention at all. Then, she finally came close to me, and she looked directly into my eyes. She started smiling. She had chubby cheeks, curly blonde hair, and a tiny ponytail. What a sweet little girl she was. I thought of coming closer to her to hug or something, but her mother came and took her. She was still looking at me. She must have liked me. I was hoping that I would see this little girl again. I needed to see her. But, within weeks, luckily, the family decided to show up again. And there she was, the little girl. But she seemed to be mad that day. I bet her mother was not letting her eat the ice cream or the chocolate that she wanted. Or they are not letting her stay on their phone. But I'd let her do anything she would ask. However, they didn't stay much. I didn't even get the chance to look at her. So, I decided to leave the mop for once and follow them. I was curious about where they live. The mother had a baby stroller for the baby, so they must have been walking to the restaurant. They must live near. I followed them for some minutes, and the little girl was always turning her head and was looking at me. I was waving her, and she was waving me back. Then, after some blocks, they had arrived at a park. The sweet little girl started running. She was excited that she was going to play. I sat there by a bench, and I was just admiring her free young soul. Suddenly, I hear someone touching my shoulder. I looked back, and on my right, there was a tall man, and in his t-shirt, it was written, "Security." He said that I shouldn't be staying there if I didn't have a kid. So, I left. As I was walking, I came across a picture. My picture was being held all over the town, saying that I was missing and needed to return to the mental health hospital. But I didn't want that. I want to have my own life. I took as many posters as I could down and decided that I was not going to waste any more time. I just needed to see that little girl one more time before the doctors found me and put me in hell. I decided to go by the park to see if the little girl was there. I went every day, every hour, but I didn't see her. Until, one day, there she was. I couldn't go as near as I wanted, because the security was there. But, I found the time when the security wasn't looking, and I decided to call the little girl, telling her to come near me. I told her that I wanted to play. She started running with her little legs. Luckily, the ice cream truck was there, and I asked her if she wanted one. The little girl jumped on my arms. What a good feeling. She started eating her ice cream and thanked me. I wanted to take her back to her mother, but then I thought, the little girl is here, she likes me. She feels comfortable around me. What if I take her to my apartment and spend some time together? She grabbed my hand, and I started walking without turning my head back. My heart was racing, but the little girl looked so calm. I arrived at my apartment, and nobody had followed me, luckily. I asked her about her name, and the little girl said that her name was Anna. I told her that she should call me Mom because I would take care of her. It's the truth. I'll do my best to make her happy. But, she kept saying that she wanted to go back to the park, to her mom and dad and her little brother. I gave her my phone. Kids love phones nowadays, right? But she didn't seem to love it. She seemed worried, and her lips were shaking. She started crying, screaming. But, I tried to calm her down, saying that her mom was on her way. This way, she calmed down a bit and had fallen asleep. She must have been tired of playing at the park, my little baby. I decided to cook something for her, so when she woke up, she would eat. But, she started crying again. Why couldn't she see that I loving her? I put her in the bathroom and said that I would bring her mom. I went to the store running and bought her some toys. Maybe she needed this. I came back and noticed that she hadn't cried at all. She was happy to see the toys, and she spent the whole afternoon playing. Then, she ate dinner. Days went by, and there were some moments when she would ask for her mom, but then she would get distracted. I was loving this life. I had never felt this way before, but I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't leave her alone. I spent all the money that I had got for her. But I don't think I will be going out as much anymore because people were looking for Anna one day. So, I decided to buy food for a whole month, till the situation calmed down. Anna wanted to go out, but I couldn't let her. They will take her away from me. No matter how much I loved and took care of her, she was still asking for her mother. I was sad and felt unloved. But something even more terrible happened. I heard that the police was going to search every house. I thought I got time, but no, one day I saw that a police car was parked in front of my apartment. A million thoughts were running through my mind. The police will take Anna away from me, and I will be back at the psychiatrist. That's not the life that I wanted. And that's why I wanted to write this, and explain why I decided to kill myself and Anna. If I can't have... You know that moment when you spend a lot of time with someone and start acting like one another? Well, that's how my sister and I are. We are the same person. We have the same habits, the same clothes, the same taste in music, the same everything. Even our parents had named us with similar names. Mine is Luna, and hers is Lira. Everyone thinks that we are twins, but she is some years older than me. And I don't see it, to be honest. I thought that I would have my sister forever by my side, just one room away, but she got into a relationship. She had met someone online. This way, I began to lose her day by day. She would sneak out at night, knowing that our nights are for Netflix. I was happy but jealous at the same time because she wasn't free enough to hang out with me. But she seemed happy. She would talk for hours for that boy. But months had gone by, and my sister was not as she used to be. She would either be on her phone all the time texting her boyfriend back, or she would be in deep thoughts, overthinking. She had this look on her face, a sad look. There were times when she would wake up in the morning, and her eyes would be all red. She must have cried all night. I was curious why. I wanted to know, but I thought that she was going to tell me herself. We used to talk about everything, but that time, she didn't. She told us something else, though. She told us that her boyfriend had proposed to her for marriage. Mom and Dad didn't even have the chance to meet this boy. They weren't sure that she should get married, she was too young. But she insisted, saying that she was in love. Plus, her boyfriend had lived so far from our city, Pristina. He was living in Skopje, and it was an almost 2-hour ride. But they didn't listen to anyone. They got married and got a new apartment. There were just them two. Even though my sister got married, she would always come home and stay about 3 days. Home didn't feel like home when she wasn't around. She often came with her boyfriend, but he was kind of a mysterious guy. I think he was just shy because he didn't talk much. Our sister told us about him and the hard life that he had. He was an only child and had lost their parents to a car accident when he was just 8 years old. He spent all of his childhood years in an orphanage. But I was glad that my sister had found someone. It is very hard to find someone who wants a serious relationship or wants to get married nowadays. I was happy for them, but I always thought that her boyfriend hated me. He always saw me like I was a bad influencer to her. He would say to me that I shouldn't make my sister wear short stuff and do makeup. But my sister always did that. He was so jealous, and he hated the fact that every time my sister came home, we would go out. But what is she supposed to do, stay inside? She was young. But then, my sister went from coming home to us every month to just texting and calling us. She would say that she didn't have time because she was going into job interviews every day. It would go months, and I wouldn't see her face. But, thank God, FaceTime exists. But, things became even worse. She would never answer my FaceTime calls. She would barely text me back, and when she would text me back, it would be short answers. She was the type to use emoji and text paragraphs about how her day had gone. But no, she kept the conversations short, like she didn't want to text me or Dad or Mom. Mom and Dad were so worried, and they decided on going to Skopje and surprise visit her. I didn't tell Mom and Dad why I didn't go with them. It would be too much for them. Because, some days ago, my sister had texted me saying that she didn't want to see or meet me. But, when Mom and Dad came back, they had some news. They looked worried. They said that they went to their apartment but the door was closed. They begged the door and then called my sister, but nothing. Then, a neighbor there had told them that the couple had been gone since a long time ago. The neighbor said that she would always hear the couple argue. She thinks that they are on vacation or something. Mom had started crying, saying that she felt like something terrible had happened. How could she go on vacation and not tell us? A day had gone, and my sister decided to text us back, saying that they were somewhere on vacation and that she didn't have any Wi-Fi connection. At least Mom and Dad were less worried. Then, my sister began to post on her social media. She was posting her vacations, spending time in the sun at the beach. She looked like she was having fun. Until one day, she had posted something suspicious. A photo of herself, a selfie. But it wasn't just any photo, it was an old photo. She had captioned that she was on vacation. But, in that photo, she was wearing my jacket, which was at my home. Was she lying that she was on vacation? I was so confused. I didn't tell Mom and Dad about this until it had been 2 weeks since our sister hadn't texted us. I told them about the pic, and they immediately called 911. The police had put my sister's pic on the news as a missing person. And we never got a text from her ever again. The police searched her apartment in Skopje, and they didn't find anything suspicious. They said that the apartment didn't even have any type of furniture, and it was so messy. There was just a bed and a kitchen. It had been weeks, and my sister was nowhere to be found, until one day, Mom and Dad got a call, saying that somewhere in Skopje, in a lake, they had found a girl's body, and they needed someone to come there and identify the body. The drive to that lake was so silent, and a million thoughts were running through my mind. I was looking at my phone all the time, hoping that my sister's name would pop out, saying that she was all right. The road there was scary. We had to drive on a very tight road between the mountains. There were a lot of signs that wild animals could cross the road at every minute. Then, we finally arrived at the place where the police had sent us. I didn't want to get out of the car, but Mom started running, crying to see if that girl's body was my sister's. They had put her in a bag, and Mom opened it without any hesitation. And there she was, the ugly truth that we were trying to avoid. Her eyes were closed. She had no clothes on, and her body was yellow. But I could tell that that was my beautiful sister. She was handcuffed, and someone had drowned her in that lake. But who could have done this to her? The only suspect is her mysterious boyfriend, and he was nowhere to be found. But the police found something strange about my sister's boyfriend. They had found that he wasn't raised in an orphanage, as he had said. He was a patient in one of Skopje's psychiatrists. He had left from there, but he still needed help. The police don't believe that he had a reason to kill her. He was simply a psycho. But, he was a free psycho and could be dangerous for other people. It had been 5 years. 5 years without my sister. Life had never been the same since then. We had no idea where my sister's boyfriend was until one day. One day we got a call from the police saying that they got him and needed us to identify him. He was found in Italy, and he had gotten arrested because someone had noticed that he was abusing a woman, who happened to be his girlfriend. So, history was repeating itself. We went there to see if it was him, but we could barely recognize him. He had changed his color hair, and he had changed his whole outfit. But, thankfully, we got the chance to save someone since we didn't get to save.
It was a hot summer day, and me and my best friend, who happens to be my neighbor too, were running around her house. She was alone that day. She hated to stay alone because her home was massive. She felt lonely. Her parents are always working, and she is the only child. So, most of my summer days I spend over at hers. I have a lot of fun at her house because her mom and dad let us do whatever we want. We go through her mom's wardrobe and try all her dresses and high heels. We often drink their wine. I don't know if they notice it, but they don't say anything to us. We live in the most beautiful place in the world, which happens to be Italy. And you must know how the views are here. It's insanely beautiful. My best friend's house is up on a hill, and it is gathered by a massive garden full of flowers. It's almost too good to be true. We spent most of our time laying by the pool or playing with her little puppy. But, one day, we decided to play hide and seek. This game never gets old, even at 17-year-old. I was winning all the time, hiding in the most unpredictable places. Then, I thought of a genius place. I knew that they had a basement where they kept all the old stuff. I decided to get in there. There's no way she could know where I was. I went there and could barely walk. It was so dark, even though there was still daytime outside. By the door, I noticed a flashlight. I took it, and luckily it worked. I stayed for some minutes, and my best friend didn't seem to find me. She wasn't calling my name, and I didn't hear any footsteps. There was a bunch of stuff there, and I decided to look around since I had nothing to do. There were toys and baby clothes full of dust. It must have been my best friend's when she was a baby. How cute. I started looking at them one by one, smiling. Then, I came across a pink, small diary. My best friend was not the type to keep a diary. I was surprised. I opened the diary, took off the dust from it, and the first thing that she had written was, "How my little sister got killed." My body was full of goosebumps. I noticed that she had written about this in more than 20 pages. I thought that it might have been a joke or something, but I read the first paragraphs and noticed that it was clearly about her life. What does that mean? She doesn't have a sister, at least that's what she had told me. I was reading when I suddenly heard my best friend's puppy barking at me like crazy. Then, I heard some steps. My best friend was yelling, calling my name Angela. I didn't know what to do. Should I leave the diary and die from a curiosity? I couldn't do that. The second that I put the diary in my pocket, my best friend came in and said, "Got you." She said to me, "Angela, you look like you have seen a ghost." I couldn't tell her what I had just seen, not until I read the rest of the story. Luckily, at that moment, her parents came from work. They insisted on me staying for dinner. But I just couldn't. I ran to my home. I was scared and curious at the same time. I went to my room, put on the sign "Don't disturb me," and locked the door. I was never this excited to read. The story went this way. Hi to whoever is reading this. I know I am not supposed to write this, but I have no one I could talk to. Something had happened to my family and me. It had changed our lives forever. I have never been this sad before. Mom and Dad said that we should keep it a secret, but they don't have to know that I am writing this. They don't understand how alone I am. They have each other. I have no one. We used to be a happy family. At first, it was just me, Mom, and Dad. Mom said that when I was younger, I cried my eyes out, asking for a sister. Every year, I would write to Santa Claus, but he would always bring me toys. I didn't want toys. I had plenty of toys. I even shared my wish in front of my class, and everybody laughed with me, saying that Santa Claus doesn't exist. But then, Mom said that we should be waiting for a stork because it would bring my little sister to our door. I would spend hours and hours looking at the sky, but the stork never came. But, just when I was about to lose my patience, my mom had started gaining weight. I was only 9-year-old when Mom and Dad told me that a baby was inside her stomach. I remember how amazed I was by the fact that the baby was in my mom's stomach. We didn't need the help of Santa Claus or the stork. Mom had made it. Months went by, and Mom says that I always used to ask her every day if the baby would arrive. But, I didn't know that I wouldn't be asking that question anymore on a random Tuesday. My little sister had arrived, and we were happier than ever. My mom took a break from work because my little sister needed her. She would cry all night, and sometimes I would say to my mom, "Can we give her back? She is not letting us sleep." But, we got used to her, and she grew up so fast. I was present at her first bath, first steps, and her first word, "Mommy." She was growing up so fast, and Mom had to start working. I was only 12-year-old, but I was confident that I could watch over my little sister. But Mom didn't want to leave us alone. She had posted somewhere online asking for a babysitter to look over us. After some days, many women came to our house, but only one of them fit with our schedule. Mom said that the babysitter would start the job immediately the next day. The next day came. I woke up and saw that the babysitter was in our living room. She was an old woman, around her 50 seconds. She had long white hair, and she was wearing a flower print dress. She seemed kind, but my baby sister started crying when she tried to hold her. My little sister is usually friendly and never cries around new people. But my mom had no other choice. She was going to start her job the very next day. I could tell by my mom's face that she was worried and didn't want to leave us alone. But I promised her that I would immediately come home after school, so my little sister wouldn't be alone with the babysitter. The next day had arrived, and I came home to the babysitter taking care of my little sister. They seemed like they started to get along. They were playing. The babysitter had made us dinner, and the living room had never looked that clean before. I was happy. Mom and Dad were happy too. It had been a month, and everything was going just fine. But then something changed. The babysitter looked like she started hating us. She was annoyed by everything we were doing. I felt terrible because we were not doing anything wrong, but I could tell that something was bothering her. She would come to our house, and she would fall asleep on our couch. There were times when I wouldn't wake her at all, thinking that she might be tired. But when I tried to wake her up, she would yell at me and push me away. One day, my mom yelled at me for making the bathroom a mess, but she didn't know that the babysitter would take a shower at our place every day. I didn't want to tell Mom because I thought that the babysitter was sick. Every time she would come out of the shower, I'd notice her black eyes, and her body would always shake. But, I don't know, I felt sorry for her. She must have been poor because she was always hungry. She would eat all of our food. My teacher had called my mom and had told her that my grades had been so low and that I had been coming to school very late. But that it is not my fault. I was getting so tired of all the work around the house. The babysitter couldn't even cook anymore because her hands were shaky. She would make me cook. One day, Mom had come early from work, and she noticed that I was cooking and the babysitter was sitting watching her Spanish telenovela. But the babysitter tried to play it cool, saying that she wanted to teach me some of her recipes. But we were making pasta every night. I didn't want to tell my parents any of this. I didn't want to make them worry. But one day, I had enough. I catch the babysitter putting makeup all over my little sister's body. She had hit her, and my sister was crying. I started crying and saying that I was going to tell Mom and Dad about this. But she closed my mouth with her hands, looking at me with her crazy eyes, saying that she would kill me if I said anything. My sister and I were so scared of her, and we began to never feel safe. I wasn't even concentrating on school anymore. My mind would always be at my little sister and wondering what she might be doing at that moment. She would tell me in detail what she and her babysitter would do. She said that she had played doctor with the babysitter one day, but the babysitter had passed out, and my little sister was scared. She told me that she had put the toys in a trash bag and left it outside. I went there searching on the trash bag, and there were a lot of syringes and wipes full of blood. I was old enough to understand that she had been taking drugs. Why didn't I think of this before? This explains her behaviors. I told her that I would tell my parents about this if she would beat my little sister again. We made a little pact. I felt safe for a little, knowing that she was not going to beat my little sister again, not knowing that something even more terrible was going to happen. While scrolling through my phone, taking my shoes off, I noticed that my socks got wet as I was getting inside. I looked up, and I saw our whole living room was filled with water. There was no one home. It was silent, but I could hear water coming from the bathroom. I opened the door, but I was late. I couldn't save my little sister, my precious little gem. She was there, in the bathtub, not breathing, all alone. Her neck was bruised. The water was freezing. She must have been so cold and scared. I could do nothing but call 911 and my mom and dad. No one could find the babysitter, but the police found out that she was a dangerous homeless woman that had an obsession with drugs. She is still out there, free. I don't know if she can sleep at night, but we surely can't. We couldn't even live in the same house. That's why we had to move out. It doesn't go a day that I don't think of her. What could she possibly have done to deserve that? She was just a baby. I closed the diary and saw that the sky had been clearer. It was morning, but I don't think that I could sleep after what I had read. And I will not be telling my best friend about this until she decides to.
I woke up on a random Monday, thinking that it would be the same as every other day, not knowing that my life and my friend's life would change forever. Did it change for better or for worse? I am a 17-year-old girl, Irina, in her last year of high school. When I started high school, I thought it would be exactly like the famous movie we grew up watching, High School Musical. I thought that I would run into the love of my life in the hallway and then live happily after. I thought that our professors were our friends. I thought that high school it is a safe mental and physical place. But, no. It turned out to be completely different. But, thank God, that I live in a city that I love, New York. New York makes me feel free. It is true that they call it the city that never sleeps. Together with my city, I barely sleep too. Mom and Dad always sleep early because they have to wake up for work. They don't hear me when I sneak out at night with my friends. They find it weird that I can never wake up for school in time. They call me sleepyhead. But I can't help it. All my friends go out at night, and it is more fun. I can't say no to my friends, they are everything to me. I have 3 best friends. We are 2 girls and 2 boys. We had created a group, us gang. When we started hanging out together, we made a promise, a law, that we shouldn't date one another. What a shame. I really like Michael. He is the sweetest and most respectful of the group. Everybody says that he likes me too, but we haven't had this conversation yet. But we can't risk and ruin our friendship. Everyone at our school looks at us like we are dangerous. Is it from the clothes that we wear? Our nose piercings? Our hair colors? I don't know, you name it. But we have always been judged, especially by one of our professors. His name is Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert teaches us math, and we hate math. I mean, who loves math? Mr. Robert is almost in his 60s. We heard that he is not married and he doesn't have any kids. Who could marry him? He is a living hell. He is tall, has glasses, and wears ancient clothes. We are pretty sure he takes his clothes straight from a museum. He smells like he eats onions for mornings. Mr. Robert hates everyone, but I think he hates our group some extra more. There are times that I feel sorry for him because he is old. I say to myself that Mr. Robert could be my dad or even my grandpa, and I try my best to respect him. But he doesn't seem to appreciate it. He doesn't grade any of our tests. He directly fails us. He never lets me speak when I raise my hand up. He doesn't even let us go in the bathroom. At first, it didn't bother me, but then things changed for the worse. Barely no one would ever wear the school uniform, but every time he saw me that I wasn't wearing it, he would hit on my hands with his rod. This would continue every day until I couldn't take it anymore and decided to wear my school uniform. My friends would make fun of me, saying that I was scared of him. I wasn't, but my hands had become full of scars, and I didn't want to make my mom and dad worried. I thought that if I wore the school uniform, Mr. Robert would leave me alone, but no. He started to get bothered by my nose piercing, saying that he couldn't even look at my face. I got rid of my nose piercing, but he would get bothered with everything that my friends and I would do. But we were patient because, within weeks, we would graduate, and we would never see or hear about Mr. Robert again. But, one day, Mr. Robert said that our whole group was going to detention after school. I was thinking to myself, what did we do wrong this time? It was a hot day, and everyone had already left school. It was Monday, and I couldn't wait to go home and nap for the rest of the day. I didn't sleep much the other night. The hallways were so silent. I went to the detention room and noticed that my friends weren't there. I thought of leaving, getting outside of the class, but I didn't want to give Mr. Robert any reason to talk. I sat there and decided to text my friends, asking why they weren't in detention. They said that they weren't told that there was going to be any detention. But, Mr. Robert said that we all were grounded. Weird. Plus, Mr. Robert still hadn't come, and it had been some minutes. So, I thought I'd leave. I woke up and went straight to the door, but the door was locked. The janitor must have looked and must have thought that everybody had left. I didn't want to panic, but it had been some minutes. I began to knock on the door and scream, saying, I am here. Nobody was hearing me, and I began to have shortness of breath. Decided to text my friends to come and help me, and at that moment, I heard noises of someone trying to open the door. I thought, finally, someone had heard me and come to save me. The door got opened, and there he was, Mr. Robert. I was standing by the door, and he goes, Where are you going? You are still in detention. He closed the door with the key. He started talking, saying how my grades were terrible and how I failed in his class. But, he said that since it was my last year of high school and I needed his grade to graduate, he said that he would help me out. He will pass me. I was confused. Why was he being nice to me all of a sudden? I thanked him and got up, wanting to leave. As I was walking, I could hear his smell and the breath and noticed that he was walking behind me. When I arrived at the door, he put his hand on it and said, But, there is something you need to do if you want to pass my class. What was he going to ask me this time? More detention? Cleaning the school? Bring him his coffee every morning? I wish he had asked those though, because what he did next is nothing compared to anything he had done all those years to my friends and me. He got near me and tried to kiss me. I pushed him away, but he was stronger than I thought. He was not letting me go, and I felt like my soul was leaving my body. I screamed as much as I could. My long nails had scratched his wrinkled face, and it started bleeding a little. He didn't think that I would fight back. He got scared and decided to let me go, saying that, "You're going to regret it." I don't know what he did next because I ran so fast. I get out of school and see that my friends have got my text. They were waiting there for me. At first, I didn't want to tell them what had happened to me, but I couldn't help but cry. The guys wanted to get in and beat Mr. Robert, but I didn't want to cause any more trouble. We would graduate in a week, so making this a big deal was no point. I got home, and I couldn't sleep without Mr. Robert's disgusting and old face appearing in my mind. Thank God I will be done with his hell called high school. Days went by, and Mr. Robert was not coming to school. Everyone was wondering where he was because he hadn't called. But I didn't care. The last day of high school had taken place, and we were more excited than ever. Mr. Robert was there too but didn't even look at us. Our teachers were grading our grades, seeing who was going to graduate. Tomorrow was a big day, and our school was getting prepared. They called us name by name, the ones who were going to graduate. But I couldn't hear my name, not only me but my friends too. We decided to go and talk to the school consultant, and they told us that Mr. Robert didn't pass us, and we must spend our whole summer taking the class and then graduate. Mr. Robert was there, smiling, happy. But we love summer. We can't spend it and have fun by having math classes. We were so mad. What will our parents say to us? They for sure won't let us even get out of the house. We decided to follow Mr. Robert and talk to him. Maybe he would change his mind. Mr. Robert got out of the school, and we were behind him. We bought some hats that we found at a store nearby and walked behind him without him knowing. Then, he got in his crappy, old car that makes noises. We luckily found a taxi and followed him. He stopped at a neighborhood not so far from school. It must be his home. He got out of the car and was opening the door. That's when my two guys' best friends stopped him and told him that we needed to talk with him. Mr. Robert didn't want to hear us talk, and without any hesitation, he kicked Michael out of the stairs. Michael got so mad he pulled a gun from his pocket. Where did he take that gun? I didn't know that he had one. I was screaming to him, saying to put down the gun. After all, we just wanted to talk in peace. Michael said to Mr. Robert to open the house door, and he listened. Mr. Robert was scared, but I was scared too. Michael talked to Mr. Robert while always pointing the gun at him, saying that he should pass us to graduate. But Mr. Robert said that he would never pass us, and as soon as we get out of his house, he will tell the police and get us arrested. We were on his property, pointing him a gun, after all. One thing led to another, and everything happened so fast when suddenly I heard a gunshot. Michael had shot Mr. Robert. His body fell on the ground of his living room, and there was blood coming out of him. As much as I hated Mr. Robert, I wished he was alive. But my friend said that he had stopped breathing. I was screaming at Michael, saying, "What the hell did you do?" But Michael got scared too, saying that Mr. Robert was going to call the police. We all just stand there, not knowing what to do. We couldn't believe that we had killed our own professor. The clock was ticking, and suddenly, someone was calling Mr. Robert. The phone couldn't stop. If that someone didn't stop calling Mr. Robert, they would sense something terrible had happened. We decided to wait to get dark outside and put the body somewhere. We got Mr. Robert's car keys and put him in the back seat. We drove to the nearest forest, dug the ground, and put the body there. We left from there like we didn't do anything wrong. But our hearts were beating so fast, and we were so scared. We got back in Mr. Robert's house and cleaned the place, and we never got back there. Days went by, and there were police searching for Mr. Robert. Nobody knew where he was. The friends at our school got graduated, and we still had to take math classes, but with another professor. Summer had come, but life didn't feel the same anymore. Mr. Robert couldn't get out of our minds. After some time, we heard the news that they had found Mr. Robert's body somewhere in the forests. I was at the beach when I got a disturbing call from someone, saying that they were Mr. Robert's neighbor and they knew what we did. Is someone messing with us? Should I go and talk to the police and confess everything? At least I got the chance to tell my side of the story here,